It's springtime. You know what that means. Bike shops are busy. You're trying to get out there and do some riding. The weather's finally breaking to get out there. Well, also there's events. Well, let's talk about those events and how important they are part of the cycling culture after this.
Welcome to I Know a Guy Bicycles, hanging out with a guy. This is As the Wheel Turns, So Do Days of Our Rides series. I will be covering topics of the industry as well as consumer views with my 30 years experience.
If you like these videos, please like and subscribe. Welcome to I Know a Guy Bicycles, hanging with a guy with a special of As the Wheel Turns, So the Days of Our Rides. So I want to talk about today, go back in time when Parker Bikes just opened in 1987. After about a year or two, my parents opened up the shop. They were confronted by the MS Society, multiple sclerosis. They actually had a ride that was going on in Colorado, which was the MS 150, as known today. That particular ride went to various different directions, but going to the Gorge was one of the more popular ones in the late 80s, early 90s. And confronting my dad in a bike shop, you know, kind of talked him into like doing this event and being mechanical support during this ride because they need bike shops to participate to help this ride along, right? So there was the beginning of the culture that I found as the MS 150 that's so vital and important to what I do to day. So back then in the early 90s or late 80s, early 90s, think about this. You were taking a weekend and pulling out a couple mechanics or owners out of the shop in the peak of the season. So they are actually taking their business and put it on the side and putting the MS 150 in the forefront. Well, there's a good reason for that. Historically, a lot of bike shops have done events, charity rides, group rides, whatever, and that's part of they're trying to build up the eco culture. Well, back in the late 80s, early 90s, that's where they really kind of started this thing, and with multiple shops across the nation, not just the MS 150, but other charity rides as well, like Courage Class, or not Courage Class, but Children's Ride, and there's several other ones. Anyway, going back to my original point, where my parents had brought this to the shop and were like, oh, okay, so we need to do this thing. Well, it became, over the years, evolved more of like, this is the thing we do. Like, in a sense, in June, boom, we get ready for the MS 150. And also, it helped out business a little bit and got your name out there, but really it was trying to help the actual event to raise money for multiple sclerosis. Well, this ride started in Highlands Ranch, Colorado. Then one route for a couple of years went through Parker, where our shop was. So we were the first rest stop. I remember getting up at 6 a.m., hitting the shop super early, getting ready, having air hose out and tables and tools and everything, and all the staff was there and greeted all these riders that needed help, and if anything's going to break down, it was the first leg of the ride, and that's boom, you get all these weird crazy stuff. So I remember those days vividly. That was my only real taste of the MS 150 until later on. I knew my parents went and did this thing on the weekends, and I was the son and a couple of my friends and mechanics that worked the shop and some other family members over the years. So we would just be stuck that weekend doing that, and they went out of town, and they'd always come back with stories like, oh, it was so tough, and this happened in the rain or whatever, you know, talk up. And I mean, some of it had some legitimacy to it, but the funny thing was the stories were really a masking of, we don't want you to do this because we were having too much fun doing this, honestly. But back in the day, my dad progressed to be more and more involved with the MS 150 and became the leader of the bike shops, basically a coordinator of the bike shops, which they have a position now today where they contact all the bike shops, get them all organized, and he was the ringleader, basically, of the situation or this event. So going into the late 90s, he would kind of powwow with all these mechanics who were, talk to him before the event and kind of coach them on what is expected, was needed, and give out tubes and cables, and you're not charging them for stuff, and just get these people on this ride. And at the end of the first day, he would have a little, like a little get together with these individuals from various shops. And back in the 90s, we were like really aggressive in the sense of, that's the competition, whatever. And when you put those mechanics that share those experiences, it kind of dropped the competition stigma away, and like, hey, we're just individuals out here trying to help out, and you do shop talk with event talk, and it was a big kind of a social group gathering of mechanics, which was awesome, and shop owners alike. So it kind of brought down the guard of competition, basically, and basically it developed a culture of that nature of these events, which is awesome. You share tubes, the kids, oh, I'm out of this, can you have that? I need a bottle of lube, cool. Borrow from a shop and what have you. And it was just to get through the weekend, and it was kind of like triage and doing this. So it was awesome. So he would really gather and get these group of guys, which they were so charged on doing this, then themselves the following year would volunteer themselves from their shops to go do it again. So it was kind of like they kept on doing it. So my dad became like this figurehead of this culture of these shops. So fast forward to 2001, we were struggling, and we had to close our stores. But my dad still kept on doing the organization of the MS-150 and keeping those shops going, because he just, that was a passion piece of it. And out of all the ups and downs of the bike shop, he still had that. Well, unfortunately, he passed away in 2005 from a quick heart attack. And that left a huge, devastating hole amongst not just our family, but our friends. And he built this bike shop that a lot of us experienced. And he was like a surrogate dad to a lot of us. And truth be known, he's not my original father. He's technically my stepfather. He's my second stepfather. And not to get into those details, but without him, I would not be where I am today. And a lot of people say that about their fathers, right? But really, I had some bad cards thrown my direction early on, and he identified that and gave me a direction. And in a very not aggressive way, like, you find your path, but let me help you with your path. And he not just did that with me, he did that with everybody. And he did that with everybody he worked with, and on top of everybody he came in contact with. He was a loving individual and very talkative too. So, those are the things where you got the culture, the warm hug, and all those things. And when he passed away, devastating hole. And to tell you how hard this is for me to make this video, this is the third video I had to shoot because I was a sobbing mess the other two. So I got it all in that system, and here we go. I'm still crying inside. And even today, it's been over 20 years. It's just insane how much of an influence he's had on me and my friends that have worked in the shop and other people alike. But going to, back to that culture, after he passed away, basically the following year, I took up the reins. Basically, I went out there and I did the mechanical support, and the MS people that knew my dad just warmly grabbed me, and it grabbed my heart as well. And in addition to, and this is what I realized, he had such a huge effect on them as much as me, as much as the people I worked with, which I knew, and our family as well, that culture that he developed, which is not just a one-off ecosystem thing. I've seen this in other shops across the nation, which is awesome. And not just to be, the lone individual weird experience only. This is happening in your neighborhood. This is happening in your culture cycling shop. So as a rider, consumer, bike shop owner, and a mechanic, those are warm things that you can gravitate to and be a part of, and show your passion into the cycling, as well as any other sport too. They have those as well. I'm just trying to express my point of view of what the MS-150 has done for me over the years, and gravitate over those first couple times of doing it solo. I realized, My parents are really talking up the bad parts, so it was a blast. So we go out and have a good time. Right now, former mechanics of mine, we get together, we make a weekend of it. We we do the old, the Parker bike way of taking care of, the riders and just put our best foot forward. And at the end of the day, we have some great experiences. And now I have my son part of this as well, so full circle. Anyway, so been doing it for the last, 5 years under I Know a Guy Bicycles. Prior to that gap, I was doing underneath Lee Cyclery, which I worked for, which shout out to Archie Solsky that helped me out to do this thing. He actually flew me out from Michigan once to do the event, just because he knew it was such a passion piece for me to do. So kind of cool. But anywho, we're on the cusp of it again. It's usually after Father's Day weekend, so for me it's like a double hitter, right? So lost my father, but yeah, we're doing this event, so hey, it's great. But every time it comes to this time of year, it's like, it doesn't matter if it's this year, last year, or going to be next year. This content is valid for the cycling culture. So if you're a bike mechanic, get out there and do a couple of those. You will be touched in many ways. And if you're a bike shop owner, please provide your services or yourself to go out and take care of and support those particular rides, and give those opportunities for those to go out there and help that kind of culture to support your community as well as your shop. It is, bottom line, one of those things that does promote, but it actually gives 10 times more to the individuals that are doing it and the individuals that are doing the ride. And for those who are into cycling or just getting into cycling, there's a lot of those types of events. Do a few of them. Try them out. Not the races per se. I mean, you can do those too, but you do some of the charity rides where it's just kind of warm. It's like a warm hug. That's all I gotta say. Just a warm hug. But anyway, going up onto the MS-150 weekend, and this is specifically to Colorado, that's this weekend, but they have those MS-150 rides and walks and other events throughout the year, so I'm sure there's probably one in your neighborhood, and also any other charity events. But you can always walk into your local mom and pop shop or any bike shop and say, hey, what kind of charity ride events are coming up that you guys are affiliated with, if you want to support the shop and so forth, and that kind of thing. So yeah, I mean, that's my history of the MS-150 and how important the cycling community, how important the cycling community from bike shop, bike mechanic to cyclist there is. So anyway, have a great weekend, and I hope to see you out there. From the garage, have a great day.